Alright. Hey, I'm Depp, and most of you know me as the rich and famous pirate, but my life wasn't always that glamorous. My family was poor, and we were constantly moving around for my father's job, and we had even lived in 20 different cities by the time we had settled down in Florida when I was 7 years old. I had an odd childhood because I was depressed all the time, and I had strange obsessions like Jack the Ripper. And my parents thought I was insane at one point, but no, I was just a little more odd than your average kid. By the time I was 13, my life started to spin out of control. I was having sex, doing drugs, and I got suspended countless times. And even once I had moved my gym teacher, but I don't really regret that. It was still pretty funny to this day. And that's the thing about my life. I do what I want and I never look back. So when I was 15, my parents got divorced and it tore me apart. So I told my mom that I wanted to start playing music. And so she saved up $25, which was a lot for my family, to buy me my first guitar. And I locked myself in the garage for hours playing that guitar, and it was the only thing I ever wanted to do with my life. And so once my parents got divorced, a year later when I was 16 years old, I decided that I wanted to take my life into my own hands and that no one else was going to control me. So I moved out of the house and I dropped out of school to follow my passion in music, and I joined a garage band called The Kids. And we were all right, but it was really hard to make ends meet, especially because we were all living together, but we were still really young. And so in 1983, when I was 20 years old, I got married for the first time to Lori Allison, and she was the bass player's sister. And that same year, we all decided to move down to LA in hopes of making it big. But when we got to LA, we realized that it was even harder to have a music career because there were just so many people trying to have a music career. So I got a job at a Pantone marketing firm, and as you can imagine, that was just the most exciting job ever, but not really, it was awful. And so to entertain myself during the day, I would be different characters on the phone with people, and that's when I kind of realized that acting was pretty fun. And so my wife told her friend Nicolas Cage that I was into acting, and he had got me jobs for extras in films, and so I could make more money instead of working at the Pantone marketing firm. And so it wasn't until a year later that I got my first big role for The Nightmare on Elm Street. And at first, Wes Craven, the director, didn't think that I had what he was looking for, but he gave me a shot anyways, and it turns out that I was perfect for the part. And then I played in more roles such as Platoon, Private Resort, and Slow Burn. But at this point, acting was still just a job for me. But then the band broke up along with my marriage, so I started putting more time and effort into acting, and that's when I realized that acting was like amazing. And I even felt that it was more comfortable to be a character rather than to be myself. And so one thing you should know about my career is that once I became a full-time actor, I was never in it for the money or the fame. It was always just about the work that I did. And so that's what kind of made me different from other actors. And it was also obvious because I just had such a mysterious and dark image. And so acting was always just a guess, and you never knew what was going to happen. Every time you try something different, it's always going to turn out differently, but that's what's so thrilling. And so aside from my personal life, I have now met another girl, Kate Moss, and then after that I started to spiral back into a deep depression, and I started using a lot of drugs. And she had even led to one of my arrests, which is where we destroyed a hotel room, and while in custody, I told the officers that there was an armadillo in the closet that jumped out and attacked us and destroyed the hotel room and jumped out, but they didn't believe me for some reason. And so I finally ended my destructive relationship with Kate Moss, and I started dating a new woman, Vanessa Paradis, and I fell in love with her. So we moved away to France, and that's where we had our first child in 1999, and her name was Lily Rose Depp. And in 2003, we had our second child, Jack John Christopher Depp III. And my kids meant everything to me. They were my world. And I think that's when I started to become more responsible, but I don't think I ever really grew up. And this is probably the part that you've all been wanting to hear about. That same year, in 2003, I got my first role in the Pirates of the Caribbean. And it was a really huge success, but at first Disney had thought that they didn't understand what I was doing with the part, so they were planning on firing me. But they let it play out, and it turned out to be a huge success. And because of my role, the movie had become a cult hit and made $54 million at box office alone. So that was probably the most successful thing throughout my career. And currently I'm working on the fourth film of the Pirates of the Caribbean series down in Australia. And Vanessa and I broke up, but I just recently got married to Amber Heard in February. And I'm looking to end my acting career in the upcoming years. If there's one thing that I want you all to take away from this, whether it be to party more, or to follow your dreams, or to do both, is in order to succeed, you can't back down. And after I dropped out of school, I went running back to my principal, begging him to take me back. But he told me, no, Johnny, I'm not going to take you back. And it wasn't because I was a bad student. It was because that he knew I was a hell of a lot better off following my dreams rather than sitting behind a desk all day. So take that risk, because we have short time on this earth and we can't waste it. So hold on tight and hope that you don't slip. Well, I realized that I spent way more time in the year than saying lines and from a dialogue than I did actually saying my own words. And I realized that's a crazy thing. That's a crazy thing.
That really is when you think about it.
So, I'm 52 now, so. And I'd like to spend more time with my kids. So.
Don't start recording until I come back.
All right.
Good dreams, Jack.